Stitt was on Tucker Carlson this week, had to get on the Tucker thing. I think he literally got 2 minutes to spew his crap. But of course, well, let's look at the clip here real quick. It's focusing on McGirt. So
what does it mean for your state that it's no longer part of the United States, parts of it, or what is this?
Yeah, so basically this all started when McGirt, who was a child rapist, showed his Indian card and got his conviction overturned. And for those of you that haven't been to Oklahoma in a while, it's literally half of our state. So if you think about Tulsa, with 1 million people, we have now had a change of rules. The state, if there's an Indian involved, has lost jurisdiction to prosecute those crimes. Our police have lost jurisdiction. And when you think about who's an Indian, you could be 1/500th, 1/1000th. I've actually got my Indian card. My 6 children with blonde hair and blue eyes, they all have their Indian card. So our police are having a tough time because you can't tell who an Indian is and who's not an Indian in the eastern part of Oklahoma.
So this is on the basis of race. So depending upon the racial category you're in, you're treated differently by law enforcement, seems to be what you're saying.
That's exactly right. I mean, the cases are all over the state. I mean, one case I like to point out, the Daniel Vivier, there 3 really bad guys beat an 85-year-old man almost to death, robbed him, stole his truck, and one of them showed their Indian card. He got out of prison. The other 2 are still in prison. That's not equal protection under the law. So one guy's out because of race. The other 2 people are still in prison. I mean, Tucker, we have people on death row that are doing 23andMe DNA tests trying to get their convictions overturned. It's preposterous.
Yeah. So this is the equity agenda. This is actually what they want for the whole country. So I'm really grateful that you explained what it means for your state, Governor.
Never heard of that one.
Thank you.
So anyway, Stitt basically is race bait. I mean, and of course, Tucker Carlson, that's like all he does is race baiting. But, trying to argue, and of course, Stitt does frame it correctly at the first, which is that all the McGirt decision did was change jurisdiction. So it just moved criminal procedure out of the state up to the feds. So like federal government prosecutes criminals all the time. They prosecuted Timothy McVeigh, for example. Feds, they're tough on crime too when they want to be. Little more reasonable perhaps in the state of Oklahoma, but he's doing that thing that the right does where they mix like a element of fact and then just fill it completely full of just racist bullshit and lie to everybody about what's actually going on. And of course, there was also a tweet, which I don't have it like ready to pull up, but Sarah Gray pointed out that like Stitt at one of his things in Muskogee asked the district attorneys who prosecute criminal law, like that's it, what like the tax implications of McGirt are, which to me, I've had people argue kind of both sides of this, but to me, that's like what Stitt's truly worried about is like, how is it going to pick the pocket of the ultra wealthy? So he's using all this fear and these terrible cases and, hiccups in the administrative side of things to try and scare people about racial animus and, fear of the other and the tribes. Anyway, standard right-wing bullshit. So Stitt got his minute 47 seconds of fame on Tucker Carlson to spew it and, of course, leaned all the way into it. Yeah, here, let me show this real quick because it's a good clip.
Can you give us any information on how McGirt could affect property tax in this area? Governor, what I'm going to request is, I'm here to deal with victims. I'm not here to deal with property tax issues. That's somebody else's stuff. So I would prefer to deal with victims.
So anyway, great clip, great catch. Thank you, Anna, for sending that over.
So I actually got to be there in person for this, and probably one of the most glorious moments in my life was watching that man crumble before my eyes. Not the first time, right? We saw this happen the other day at the Capitol. But the other thing, too, to really talk about this is, you're talking about taking on 39 different tribes and nations within your own state. And, Tucker Carlson obviously has no idea that, like, oh, shit, what sovereignty is. Like, first of all, let's just write him up. Because he's like, what? There are other nations within Oklahoma? Yeah, you're not from here. Okay, we get it. The other thing, too, is, like, and I'm just going to say it, I mean, I'm not going to take the word of somebody whose family is rumored to have bought their way onto the roll. I don't care if you're blonde, blue-eyed kids, which there was absolutely no reason whatsoever for you to bring that up. My blonde, blue-eyed children all have their Indian card. What are you trying to say, man?
Right, is that like a flex? Like, what are you saying?
What are you trying to say?
Oh, no. He's trying to... I mean, it's racism. Like, yeah.
On our race people? I mean, that's what it is. It's a race shirt at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, he's terrified. He's terrified of the implications of this decision, because what does it do is it strips the governor of their power, and especially with the current administration who is passing bills left and right, trying to consolidate as much power into the executive as possible. This just threatens everything. And not to get too deep into the science of everything, but yeah, let's talk about how the property tax implications of all this works. If all of a sudden you have a good third of Oklahoma all of a sudden being considered tribal land that they can tax and do things with, I mean, I'm not too mad. And I'll say this because, they run services better than we do. So, I'll take all the help that I can get.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately what they're worried about. I mean, they're worried about tribal industries getting bigger. They're worried about tribal nations becoming better places to live, reinvesting in their people, not having disgustingly huge amounts of wealth and income inequality. I mean, that's to me, that's what they're ultimately worried about. And McGirt did throw a lot of stuff into chaos, so there probably are some bad stories out there about criminal, disruptions in the criminal legal system. But the tribes are hiring people as fast as they can. They're, working with law enforcement to make sure they're covering things. And frankly, based on how shitty a job Oklahoma does with criminal justice stuff, odds are they're going to do a way better job in the long run with it. So, I mean, it's all about power, money, taxes. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And they're all just scared of losing that.
I want the money. The money is mine.
Yeah. And then Storm Jones, I can't quite piece what this is, and I wish we had an Indigenous panel member to talk about this, but Storm Jones kind of went through a whole thing about having his Indian card. I'm just gonna flat out say I am not educated enough on this issue to understand kind of what this is, but it's seems to be what he's saying is there's a distinction between obviously tribal citizenship, where you are a citizen of a tribe, and sort of this federal designation of having a degree of Indian blood. So worth checking out if you're interested in this issue. I mean, he doesn't make any strong claims, but I do feel like he kind of gets into this murky area about, racist kind of ideas about what it means to be Indigenous and what it means to be a tribal citizen. Well, so anyway,
the other thing too is that's not upon. You could argue that that's not the right job of the federal government to do that.
Sure, right.
People who are from these communities should be the ones enforcing and doing these decisions, and that debate belongs to that community. It's not for you to make a commentary on at that point. And I mean, I'm just going to say this too. We last week had the privilege of sitting down with D.G. Smollett, right, a master Choctaw artist who really phrases things in a way of Oklahoma should be a test bed for things like foreign policy. You have 39 individual different tribes and nations who run their own governments, that run their own policies, their own agencies and stuff like that. And that's how we need to be considering looking at this. Kevin Stitt, who wants to run for president one day, wants to talk about doing foreign policy with Russian friendlies and Azerbaijan, and talking about how he doesn't necessarily he showed up on Muslim Day, and his closest thing to the Muslim community is honestly Azerbaijan at that point. And so when you're rolling up with a dictator, it just really just shows where you're coming from. He has no idea how he's going to handle intertribal relations. When 3 of the 5 biggest ones have come out saying we're not going to support you in election, it just looks really bad on you, man. Especially your own tribe.
And especially because they're I mean, the way Stitt negotiates is the way all colonizing white supremacists have. My way or the highway, might makes right sort of mentality. And anyone who's been in a equal negotiation knows that that's just not how you can negotiate with someone. I mean, nobody wants to be in that sort of a negotiation. So if you're a sovereign nation, like, I mean, we're seeing it sort of in the Ukraine-Russia deal, but it's like,
I mean,
like,
let's paint a picture of all the things that he's had issues with tribes: gaming compacts, hunting and fishing licenses, McGirt. Like, these top 3 issues are, to be real, man, they're going to screw him over. And I really, really, really hope that we can capitalize on this nature, because people are pissed. People are very, very pissed. And I know, like, on our side of things, especially in the left, we really talk about things like Take Back Tulsa, for example, as an initiative. But this really is coming down to the bottom of it. And I really hope to see that we can maybe possibly replicate some sort of process like that here in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. And I think, having to go to guys like Tucker Carlson, who is literally a professional racial animus generator. I mean, like, that's all he does is create racial discord. Like, it just shows that they just have to go to the lowest common denominator to get what they want. Like, they can't make their argument through even fear of crime and all that. Like, it doesn't seem like it's moving Oklahomans that strongly, probably because there aren't that many examples of it and it's not affecting most people's daily lives. But so they just have to go straight back to, these people look different than us, and so therefore we're better, type stuff. And unfortunately, Tucker has built an entire career out of that and is grossly effective at it. Thanks for watching our video. Please give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more content. If you want to engage with us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.